Hey folks, this is another video in a series that aspires to teach Google Apps Script's spreadsheet app to beginners. In previous lessons, we've learned how to access Google Sheets workbooks, how to create workbooks from scratch, how to make copies, how to access individual sheets, how to extract data, and how to dynamically uh, establish ranges. We're going to resume by navigating to the Files menu and creating a new script file. We'll be focusing on the ways that you can write to a Google Sheet. So we're going to title it F underscore write underscore sheets. We'll hit enter. We're going to change the name of our function to sheet writer, and we will save our project. We're going to select line 2. I'm going to hit enter once, add 2 slashes for a comment, and we will begin by accessing the workbook that we want to write to. So we'll hit enter and tab. We're going to declare a variable of WB, which we'll set to spreadsheet app, and then we're going to use a dot method. So you have 3 options to access a workbook. If you're using a bound app script file, which is what I am using, and you want to write to the same workbook that your app script is bound to, then you can use .getActiveSpreadsheet. That's what I'm going to be using. But if you want to write to a new workbook that the app script is not bound to, then you are going to need to either use openById or .openByURL. So pick whatever method is best for you. I'm going to be using .getActiveSpreadsheet. We'll have an open parentheses because we do not need to define an input. We're going to hit the right arrow on our keyboard and we'll use a semicolon. We'll hit enter twice, left arrow twice, and add 2 slashes for a comment. Now we will access the sheet we want to write to. So we'll hit enter and tab, and we'll declare a variable called sheet, and we'll set it equal to wb.getSheetByName. We'll use an open parentheses. GetSheetByName takes a single argument, which needs to be structured as a string. So we're going to add either single quotes or double quotes. I've been using single quotes throughout my project, so that's what I'm going to go with. If you've been using double quotes, continue to do so. We're going to go to our workbook, and we are going to identify the sheet that we want to write to. I want to use sheet 2. You can either type the name in, or you can double click on it and copy it so that you can paste it into GetSheetByName. One reason to double click on the sheet name or the tab is to ensure that there are no spaces after the text characters. So that's one way to make sure that you are correctly entering in the sheet that you want to access. We're going to hit the right arrow on our keyboard twice. We're going to add a semicolon, and we're going to hit enter twice. We're going to hit the left arrow twice, and we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment. And now we are going to create some data. So we are going to create a string. So we'll hit enter and tab, and we'll declare a variable of data, and we're going to set it equal to single quote, and it will be the word hello. So this is a string because it is the characters are entered in between quotation marks. So we're going to hit enter twice, hit the left arrow twice. Now we will create an integer. We'll hit enter and tab, and we'll call this var data capital I int, and we'll set that equal to the number 5. So the difference between these 2 data types is one is a string, which is identified by these quotation marks here, and the other is an integer because it is a numerical character and it is not enclosed by quotation marks. So we're going to add a semicolon. We're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, and now we will create an array. We're going to hit enter and tab, and we're going to declare a variable of data capital A array, and we'll set that equal to square brackets, and then we will have single quotes and say hello, and then we'll go to the right of the single quotes and we will add an integer. So it doesn't matter what you're using. We just need some data types so that you can see the various ways that you will be attempting to pass data into a spreadsheet. So we have an array here, which is indicated by the single square brackets. We're going to add a semicolon at the end. We're going to hit enter twice, hit the left arrow twice, and now we are going to add 2 slashes, and we are going to create a 2-dimensional array. We're going to hit enter and tab, and we're going to declare a variable called data array 2D, and we'll set that equal to square brackets, enter, square brackets, single quotes, hello, hit the right arrow on your keyboard, add a comma, and the number 5. And then we're going to go to the right, and we're going to add a comma, and then we're going to add another set of square brackets, and we'll add single quotes, and we'll say, hey, hit the right arrow on your keyboard, comma, number 1. You can enter in whatever you want to here, but you just want to make sure that you have square brackets, and then I hit enter so that we could have an easier time of seeing them, but you don't have to do that. And then I have 1 set of square brackets, comma, 2 sets of square brackets. So this is a 2-dimensional array. And the reason that it's a 2-dimensional array is because it is an array of arrays, which is also known as a list of lists. So anytime that you have square brackets like this, that is dependent upon the language that you are using, either a list or an array. And when you have a 2-dimensional array, it means that you have a set of square brackets that encapsulates other sets of square brackets that are comma separated. So the same way that hello is comma separated by 5 is the same way that array 1 is comma separated from array 2. And you can keep going, right? We could have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as many arrays as we want. But the reason that it's a 2-dimensional array is that these square brackets here on line 19 and 21 are containing other arrays within them. And thus, it is 2 dimensions. The first dimension is the array. So this is array number 1, array number 2. And the second dimension is the individual points within each array. So the values that are comma separated. Understanding how to work with 2-dimensional arrays and arrays are crucial for writing to Google Sheets. When you extract data from Google Sheets, you will receive it in the format of either an array or a 2-dimensional array. Now, of course, there might be times that you extract values as a string or an integer, but if you are bulk collecting data or bulk writing data, meaning writing to more than one row or column, then it's going to be structured as an array or a 2-dimensional array. I focus on this in my fundamentals video, so if you're still a little unclear on how 2-dimensional arrays or arrays work, I talk about it a little bit more there. We are going to kind of touch on them in this lesson because we are learning how to write to sheets, but we're not going to really dive into the nuances as deeply as that video. Cool. So we're going to resume on line 21, and we're going to hit enter twice, left arrow twice, and we're going to add 2 slashes for a comment. And now we are going to explore how to write to sheets. So we're going to hit enter and tab. I am going to collapse this window up here because I don't need it anymore. And what we're going to do is we are going to, you know what, we'll just declare a variable and we will call it writer, and we'll set it equal to sheet.getRange, and we're going to open up the getRange method. So in order to write to a sheet, you need to define the range that you are writing to. So you can't just say, I have some data, just take my data, right? You can't say, write the number 5 or write hello, and then define where you want to write it. In Google Apps Script, you define the range where you're going to write it. And that's kind of similar to, I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet now. It's kind of similar how in here you would be like, okay, I want to write it here, or I want to write it here. You're doing the same thing in Spreadsheet app. You need to define the range that you are going to write to, which means you need to know what you're writing before you write it. So for our purposes, we are going to define just the minimum amounts. So we're going to do 1, 1. We're going to hit the right arrow, and then we are going to hit the dot method in order to open up some of our functions. So you can see within getRange, we have a nest of things that we can do. So we want to write to our sheet. So we're not going to use any of these methods up here because we're not seeing anything that allows us to write to a sheet. We are going to write set, and then I'm going to start typing in the word value. And now you can see that we have 2 different options, 4 in total. We can set value, we can set values, we can set rich text value, or we can set rich text values. Now, I'm not going to focus on rich text value or values because I've never done it. So if you do need that, I apologize. If you have experience with that and you're watching this video, please write it in the comments. But this video is only going to focus on set value and set values. So we are going to begin by using set value, and we're going to have an open parentheses. Set value is only going to write one value to a sheet. So we are going to attempt to use some of our data types up here. So the first thing that we're going to try to do is set our string of hello. So we're going to reference that data variable here. We're going to hit the right arrow on our keyboard, and we're going to declare a semicolon. We're going to hit save, and we are going to hit run. And we're going to go back to our sheet, and now you can see that the word hello has been written into cell 1, column 1, because we defined in our getRange method starting at the first row in the first column. Great. So now we're going to try writing our data int variable. So we're going to hit run, and we go back to our spreadsheet, and now you can see that we've replaced hello with 5. Now, an indication that number 5 is an integer or a number is because it is hard aligned to the right. Let me see if I can hit back. You can see that hello is text, so it is hard aligned to the left, whereas 5 is hard aligned to the right. So anytime you see a number in a unformatted spreadsheet, meaning like people haven't gone up here and changed the alignment manually, if you're seeing numbers lining up on the right, that's a good indication that they've remained numbers. But for example, if I go in here and I add single quotes to my 5, this is now a string. So when we attempt to write it, oh, no, that's actually fine. In Google Sheets, I apologize, it will understand that this is a number. Some other programming languages will not be able to identify the difference between a string object and an integer. Cool, so that works. So now let's try writing our data array. So we'll hit run. And it kind of works, right? But we don't have our other value in here. So if you use set value, you're only going to write one value. So so that this is a little bit clearer, I'm going to change hello to did both things appear. I'm going to hit run. And you can see that set value is not allowing both of them to appear because of the nature of set value being singular. But it will write, you know what I mean? Like it's not going to give you an error. And just to kind of prove this out a little bit further, we have 2 comma separated values here, which I believe means that these would be 2 columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comma to my getRange, and then I'm going to define that we only want to go 1 row. I'm going to add a comma. I'm going to say that we want to write data to 2 columns. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to hit run. And you can see that still doesn't work. And what it ends up doing is instead of writing did both things appear, and the number 5, we end up getting 2 instances of did both things appear. So what set value is going to do is it will set values to the range that you want to. So in this case, starting at row 1, starting at column 1, it's going to go 1 row and it's going to write to 2 cells, in this case 2 columns. But it's only going to write the first value that appears because it is only capable of setting a value. And that same thing is going to be the case with our data array 2D, where we hit run. We are going to get hello and hello because we are just writing the first value. So because of that limitation, I would not recommend using set value in your scripts. The only time that you would potentially want to do this is if you had an instance where you had a single string or an integer. But I don't think that would provide you with enough rationale to use set value, because if your data expands beyond a single string or an integer, then your script is going to break, because it's not going to break, but it's not going to do what you want it to do. Therefore, I think it's wise to use set values all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete data array 2D, and we are going to, we'll keep get range. No, you know what? I'm going to change this up. We're just going to start over again and do sheet.getRange. Start at row 1, start at column 1, and we are going to use .set values instead of set value. And we're going to see how each of these data types responds. So for example, we are going to begin with data. So we're going to hit save, and we're going to go back to our sheet, and we're going to clear out the data. So we have just a blank sheet that we're writing to. We go back to spreadsheet app, and we're going to hit run. And we're getting an error. And the reason for that is that set values cannot write a single string. Set value needs to be structured as an array. So just so that you can see how this works, I'm going to change data to data array. And in addition to starting at row 1, column 1, I'm going to add another comma and say that we want to just go 1 row. We're going to add a comma and then say that we want to go 2 columns. This way we have the same number of, we're accessing an equal number of cells that we want to write to, which in this case will be did both things appear, comma 5. So I'm going to hit run. Oh, my apologies. So it looks like this might be like that. Weird. What's going on here? Oh, my apologies. So actually, this is the same issue as data array, where it's not going to take an array. Or sorry, as data. The issue between data and data array are the same, because the set values method does not take a single value and it doesn't take an array. So what we're going to do is we are going to change our range to align with data array 2. And we are going to go to set values and do data array 2D. So the adjustment and the parameters that you need to have on your screen is sheet.getRange, and we are going to begin at row 1 and column 1. The reason for that is because we want to start writing at cell A1. Our 2D array has 2 arrays within it, which represent 1 row. So the first square bracket is row number 1, and the second square bracket is row number 2. Within each array, we have 2 elements, so we need to have 2 columns for each row. So we're going to hit save, hit run, and now we've successfully written to our sheet. You can see we have hello, hey, 5, and 1. So for set values, you need to structure your data as a 2-dimensional array. So if you have a string or an integer or an array, you will not be able to use set values as they are. But there's a way that you can clean this up. So we're going to remove our two-dimensional array, and we're going to work with our data variable. But before we write our data variable, we're going to add one set of square brackets and then another set of square brackets. And then we're going to type out data. We're going to change our get range from 2, 2 to be 1, 1. So that means that we are going to be starting at row 1, column 1, and we are going to write to 1 row and 1 column. And then we're going to set values for 2 sets of square brackets and the word data in between. And now when we hit run, we are able to write to our sheet. So let me remove this here so that we can run this again. Cool. So now you see that hello has popped up. We're going to go down here and we can do the same thing with data int. We can hit save and run. And now you can see the number 5 is appearing. And now we will remove data int. We'll get rid of one set of square brackets. So now we should just have one. So we should have dot set values square bracket. And then we're going to type in data array. And we're going to change it from 1 column to be 2. And we're going to hit run. And now you can see that we have did both things appear. So in summary, if you want to write to a Google Sheet, you need to use one of 2 methods, dot set value or dot set values. If you are using set value, you are only going to be able to write one value to the sheet. Therefore, in my opinion, it is a suboptimal option for you to choose when attempting to write to sheets. If you're attempting to use set values, you will have to structure your data payload, meaning the data that you want to write to the sheet, as a 2-dimensional array. And the way that you can modify values that are not 2-dimensional arrays, such as an array or an integer or a string, is by adding square brackets inside of set values before attempting to deliver the data. That way, the data structure will be formatted as expected and will provide you with a dynamic way to send your data to your Google Sheet.
I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to learn more about Google Apps Script or the spreadsheet app, then check out the playlist in the description.